You're listening to the Novice Experience, a podcast that explores the opportunities and challenges commonly encountered by students and young people. I'm Calvin Chan, and chatting with my guests, I'm going to take a deep dive into their meaningful stories, the lessons they've learned, and how they can inspire others. Let's get going. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Novice Experience. I'm your host, Calvin Chan. Today, my guest is Queena Zeng. She's my high school friend, and Queena is a Bachelor of Business Administration graduate from the University of Toronto. At UT, she specialized in strategic management, but explored her other passions in marketing, leadership, and politics by participating in various groups such as the Management Co-op Program, Women in Business Association, and the Model United Nations. She is currently a digital marketing coordinator in one of the world's largest multinational auto manufacturer. So, Queena, welcome to the show.
Hi, Calvin. Thanks for letting me be on the show. I'm so excited, as you can tell, and welcome everyone else to the podcast.
Yeah, so thanks so much for welcoming our listeners. I know you have a lot to bring to the table today. Obviously, you have a really long resume, so I'm really excited to catch up with you and hear all about your experiences the last few years at Toronto. But before I start, I ask every guest this for their origin story. So where you're born and raised and some of the most defining moments that make up who you are today.
Yeah, for sure. So I was born in Zhuhai, China. I'm a first generation Canadian. So my family moved over to Canada when I was around 5 or 6. So I would say that was really the defining moment of my life, moving to a different country. Learning a new language, that was very, not traumatic, but it was definitely a defining moment. But that experience through my family, it was definitely tough. So in a family of 4 daughters, it was definitely very interesting growing up in a new country with my parents who was trying to learn the language as well, right? And immerse themselves into the society. But like many of my peers throughout elementary and high school, there were a lot of first generation families. So it was really great to have that support in the community. So being a first gen Canadian, I say it's a defining characteristic of who I am. Always trying to learn new things about being Canadian and what that means to me is something that I always worked on since I was little to this day too, and hence why I even moved to where I am now. Moving across the country to Toronto to attend a University of Toronto was one of the reasons why, because I wanted to explore more about Canada. And Toronto was a city that I've never been to, and I knew that it was a big city full of opportunities, whether that's academically or professionally. So yeah, that's a little glimpse about me, and I know we're definitely going to talk more about U of T and all the ups and downs of moving across the country.
For sure. And I'm really excited to ask you about that. Obviously, I know it's a big step in your life, and you actually, seized a lot of good opportunities at UT. So we're going to dive into those. But first, I like to move on to a segment called Give Me Five. It's a lightning round of questions so our listeners get to know you better. You can give short answers, you can give long answers. You don't have to really explain anything. It's rapid fire. So number 1, Queena, who do you admire the most?
I would say my colleague, Margaret Rousseau. She's been at Toyota Canada for a really long time. I think almost 30 plus years at Toyota Canada. Wow. And yeah, she's currently the head of translations at Toyota Canada and oversees almost every translation to French across both Toyota and Lexus.
Wow.
For all communication, even from marketing to PR to even product. She has exposure in all of them. So yes, Margaret Rousseau.
And that's amazing. That sounds like she knows all the languages very well, and she's able to communicate with different people of different background and cultures. So that's amazing. Second question. It's been a long year Queena, with the pandemic, what's one
Hmm.
thing you're really tired of?
I'm tired of hearing about the pandemic. I think most people are, and I feel like there is this trend on TikTok where people call the pandemic other things now. So right now it's called panini
Oh my God.
to some people. So, I think it's really interesting to see
Mhm.
how each month is different from the other months and how people adapt to the pandemic. It's different I guess, every week, right?
Mhm.
Things change so frequently, and it seems
Mhm.
like we're coping with humor now and a lot of positivity, I feel like. So hopefully that keeps up, and yeah.
For sure. Third question: if you could relive one experience in your life, what would it be?
This might be interesting. I think sports was something for me in high school was really important to me.
Hmm.
I was lucky to be able to play volleyball at a competitive club level.
Hmm.
So me, when I think about my youth years, especially high school, I always think about volleyball and the amazing memories I had with my team and the achievements I made through that sport.
Right.
Yeah, I love it so much, and it has actually gotten me in a lot of it gotten me in different experiences through U of T. So it motivated me to play D League volleyball at U of T, which is like one step under varsity. And I even started a volleyball drop in at Toyota Canada.
Wow.
Um, bef- well, it ended thanks to COVID, but yeah, it brought me to a lot of places and helped me to network and bond with other people that I wouldn't have.
That's amazing. It's amazing how like your passion in sports and
Yeah,
perhaps you didn't do it professionally, but it really changed the way you interacted with your friends and your colleagues, and
yeah,
obviously you've taken an initiative at work. So that's amazing how a small passion can really stick with you for many years.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, fourth question: when are you the most productive?
I am most productive when I'm really interested in something.
For sure, yeah.
And I think everyone is. So I guess, when I'm the most productive when, yeah, I'm passionate and interested in something. And thank goodness I am passionate about my work. So I'm productive 9 to 5, I would say.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. Last question, and this is sort of related to our podcast today. So,
Hmm.
name one brand that's your personal favorite, and a second one that you objectively feel like they have a really strong brand and marketing game.
I hate to say this, but it is Aritzia.
Hmm.
And, Aritzia, despite all things, I think they're a great innovator in the retail space.
Interesting.
And
Hmm.
of course, they're, Vancouver based. So I do have that strong emotional connection as, a Vancouverite
For
and
sure.
a person who has bought their product for, you know, the last decade.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm a proud supporter of that as a buyer, but I
Hmm.
have worked at the stores as well from a retail perspective as a stylist. So I have some exposure to the way they run things corporately. And I have to
Right.
say, getting some of that insights was really interesting. And I see them being a really strong competitor in the retail space. And they're doing really well in this pandemic, despite the reduction in retail business, especially in the brick and mortar space. They were
Yeah.
still able to really grow their e-com, and that really speaks to their marketing at the end of the day. How impactful they can be, um, being authentic to their brand. I think that's really being authentic and unique to the brands it's within self. So it's really interesting, and I can go on and on about Aritzia, but yeah, they're definitely my favorite brand, and um, yeah,
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear that you've personally experienced the culture inside, and the thinking behind the brand and marketing. And yeah, for sure. Like I'm so happy to see like some local brands that are really, really popular. Like another clothing and retail brand that I can think of is Arc'teryx, right?
yeah,
Innovative. also based in Vancouver. So
Sustainable.
sustainable, like many of the same things that you mentioned for Aritzia. So yeah, I'm really proud of that as a local Vancouverite.
Yeah, and even Lululemon too. I think
Yes, for
there's
sure.
so many
Yeah.
brands locally and in the retail space doing really well and being
Hmm.
destructive.
That's for sure. Yeah. Well, maybe we can touch on that when you tell us more about your degree. So, like I mentioned in the introduction, you graduated from the University of Toronto with your Bachelor of Business Administration. You actually are passionate in marketing, but you chose to specialize in strategic management. Can you
Mhm.
tell us more about that decision? And what you learned as part of that specialization?
Yeah, for sure. Um, so I'll take a step back, just to grade 12,
Hmm.
when I accepted that program because I only applied for business programs in grade 12, and I knew that was the route I wanted to take, because I was interested in a career in business in every shape or form. I knew that marketing was one of the career paths I wanted to take, but I wasn't sure what else. What else in business could I do? So going into U of T, um, and choosing this program, I knew that it would provide me the balance, the funda- fundamentals to succeed in business because it provides really great foundation across finance, accounting, economics, strategy, and even marketing. That's what I loved about the program. Um, yeah, academically gave me all that. But I chose to go a more strategic route because I was more interested in, academically. I wanted to learn more about the legal aspects
Hmm.
of business, the strategy. What defines success and what defines pitfalls, and how do business recover from that. So I focus a lot of my academics towards that.
Hmm.
Um, because I wanted that diversification in academics from my passion, right?
Hmm.
I knew marketing was a thing that I wanted to do, but I wanted to verify that through my initiatives outside the classroom.
Right.
And I knew I could do that. And I knew I could learn more about marketing outside the classroom more than the inside, because marketing, from my point of view, is changing every single year, every month. Essentially, it's a really digital, and ever evolving space. So I knew that, so my program did provide me that foundation in marketing, but through extracurricular, I knew I could apply my learnings and dive into my own learnings a bit more. So, for instance, getting certification in Google Analytics, right,
Hmm.
and Facebook Blueprint and all that stuff. There's so many courses out there that is free to take. So I took that route, and I used taking initiative outside the classroom, getting those certification, and applying that to my extracurricular, with the marketing group, live competition, and
Right.
starting a Women in Business Association. I did all the marketing role for that, to apply my passion, and essentially that was the route I took because I really believed in diversifying myself. I knew that, I wanted to stand apart from other marketers because I knew that people would specialize in marketing, but so what? Are they doing anything outside
Yeah,
of their classrooms?
that's um that's interesting because I wanted to ask when you talk about like your peers and your classmates, I wanted to ask like for someone who's trying to think about like what to specialize or major in a business degree,
Mm,
um, do you think that there's a difference in the type of people that study management, strategic management, and the type of people that study marketing? um, did you need to have particular skills, soft skills, personalities? When you said you didn't want to be the same as other
mhm.
marketers, was there, did you have to like shift sort of your point of view when you entered the degree?
I think what was yes, I think there's different types of people
Mhm.
in terms of program when they choose to do a marketing specialist versus not. And I think
Mhm.
it's as if someone doesn't have experience in marketing, they want that experience in marketing, so they choose to study in that. And then versus people who have exposure to marketing and then knowing what they could do outside of the classroom and get that experience and knowledge elsewhere. I think that's the defining key
Mm.
differences between people, right? So for me, it was the outside experience. I knew I could
Interesting.
do a
Yeah.
lot of that on my own through networking and through my own investment into my education on my own time. I knew I could essentially develop a more comprehensive portfolio that I knew could give me the competitive edge. And the one thing about myself is that I don't like limiting myself at all. I
Yeah.
like being super open to everything and I don't like settling. I think that's one thing about me that
Mm.
people might know. I'm a very competitive person.
Yeah.
Um, through sports, I've always been. So when, in the first and second year, I knew marketing was a career path, but I just wouldn't want to settle. I wanted to verify that was exactly what to do. So I made sure that if I was going to that, I put my own personal time aside for that. And then academically, I was branching out to other things. Whether that was, more of the strategy side of business, and I took some courses in political science and
Yeah.
almost got a minor in that as well. So yeah, that kind of speaks to how I operate and why I chose the route I took and designed I guess a very unique portfolio of my degree.
For sure, yeah. Like, there's a diversity of experiences and knowledge that you gained from your degree here. But when you say like you're someone who doesn't settle, you like to
Mm-hmm.
try different things, particularly new experiences. Did you feel like there are times where you really had to take a risk for yourself? Because I feel like for someone who really liked marketing,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps the comfortable route would be to study that, major
Yeah.
in it, get some work experience in it, and have their network in marketing. But obviously, you chose something else, and you had to have the discipline on your own outside of the
Mm-hmm.
classroom to learn marketing and get that experience. So obviously, there wasn't a guarantee that you're going to get anything in return for the marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how did you overcome that risk? Was there an element of fear and doubt in yourself when you made that decision? What pushed you to get out of your comfort zone?
I think it's just my determination. I think what really clicked to me that is that I knew for certain I was determined. I knew marketing was a strong possibility and
Right.
probability of where I will net out. So I was very determined. I didn't have fear, and I think that's why it clicked for me, and that's why I still continue growing my marketing career because I was so set on it. And in my program, I had co-op. Right, I took
Yes.
co-op as my advantage to learn more about marketing. So I really only applied to marketing roles for my first co-op, and I knew that marketing is really based on experience you get out in the field in the real
Mhm.
world. That's where you really learn the true marketing where it lives today.
Yeah.
And yes, textbook help, yes, courses help. In fact, I learned the most in my marketing courses. As I mentioned, marketing courses are still part of my program.
Yeah.
uh, and I had all my extra credit would essentially go into my marketing courses,
Yeah.
and I have the most fun in it. Um, the case studies, it's the one of the only one of the theme of courses that I excelled academically. So everything just clicked for me in that sense. So, and the risk was going into strategic management stream.
Was it hard to get a co-op job as a non-marketing major student, competing against others. How did you, on paper, because obviously you had to communicate your decisions and the risks that you took on paper first before you got to an interview. So how did you work around that?
Yeah, it wasn't really hard at all, and it was because of my extracurriculars, right? I did all my marketing roles and experiences came from that. And how do I prove my passion for marketing and apply the knowledge I knew was through the extracurricular, through the marketing roles I did. So yeah, that's how I proved myself, and I think and ultimately, I believe that employers really look at experiences like those versus your academic background. And through my networking, I learned that a lot of people that are in marketing don't have a marketing degree as well, right?
Hmm.
They might have degrees that focus more on psychology. Um, One of my colleagues, she has like a doctor's degree in history.
Yeah.
Right, there's so many different backgrounds in marketing, and that's a good thing. It's
Yeah, for sure. I think like marketing is a very creative space, and obviously
Mhm.
it's the way companies communicate with their base and the public, right?
Mhm.
And so having like different perspectives and backgrounds and experiences of people come together and trying to come up with like a marketing program for a company
Yeah.
is a really awesome thing. You don't want people to have like one dimensional thinking, and
No.
that I feel like that limits the creativity for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And even like even just strategizing, creating plans, you need to
Yeah.
be able to live and breathe in multiple dimensions of marketing.
Yeah,
And I feel
I like
like
that. Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like you can probably feel the passion burning for me as I talk more about this. But
Yeah.
yeah, that is essentially why I'm in marketing.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a interesting field that is again always changing, and it's a really great marriage between art and science because there's
Yeah, I
a
love that.
whole
Yeah.
back end of tech,
Yeah.
good or bad, I will say. But yeah, it's very interesting.
Can you think back to where you first learned about marketing and where you started that passion in it? Because obviously I can see that you're really interested in the space. It's really something that speaks to you. But what were some of the experiences that you got when you were younger that led you to marketing? Because I remember in high school, like you were part of student council and like some other clubs as well. And you did a lot of like PR roles, right? Social media, sort of
Hmm.
like marketing for the clubs. So you had that experience going into university. But like when did it all start, and what are some of the moments that you remember that really enforced that passion in you?
Yeah, like you said, Calvin, I think it really started with just the involvement in extracurricular, doing social media for clubs, even though, it was all amateur work. I had no idea I was doing. And Facebook at that time was still growing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Instagram wasn't even a thing. So, and, as we grow up, as Facebook became more monetized, more driven by performance and metric, and as I kept doing these roles, I started noticing, performances per post. And I always, when I was in, was the social media coordinator for, I guess, student council. I don't
Yeah.
even remember the roles now. But yeah, just like creating these posts, obviously the objective is to bring people together in our school. And I hope I did a good job. But
Yeah.
that's when it started to click for me in terms of what people were responding to, what were people liking. Um,
Mhm.
and it's all dependent on creative, the text, the way messages are conveyed. Uh,
Yeah.
that was something I started to dive more into. And as I started, doing this more and getting more into this realm of social media marketing per se. I started doing my own thing, um, and learn more about it on my own time. There wasn't really a marketing course in our school, right?
No, no, yeah.
Yeah, so I took it to my own time and just really learn about this, essentially new field that was growing throughout high school because social media marketing wasn't, it was so new. So that was really what fascinated me. And
Yeah.
growing up, I was always super aware of marketing as like ads in general. I
Right.
always
Yeah.
watched commercials and I
All
thought,
of us did. Yeah.
yeah, and I really love commercials that, well, good or bad. I love
Mhm.
analyzing it from the start to finish, even looking at the music choice that they were doing, you know, whether it's, education based or comedy based. Whenever I look at ads, I always analyze it. And I think with that in my experience as I grew up, that's really where it clicked for me. And
Yeah.
then I think you might wanted to probably touch upon this, but yeah, it was really the Student Voice BC. And so in our grade 12 year,
Yeah. Tell us more about that Student Voice VC. What happened and what did you do? I remember that really clearly from you.
yeah, so so at the start of our grade 12 year, unfortunately, there was a teacher strike
Hmm.
against the BC government, and that really delayed the start of our grade 12 year.
Right.
For I feel like it was a month and a half into our school year, and I was worried going in that summer as the strike was happening. I was worried about our senior year, obviously, but I was
Hmm.
worried about the students, you know, um, making sure the students have a voice in amongst the political um,
Turmoil.
turmoil, right? It,
Yeah.
it was tough, and it was tough to, and I love our school, really. I love our community.
Yeah.
I love the students and everyone within our community, even outside of our own high school, right? So I
Yeah.
really wanted to help the teachers and help and motivate the BC government to come to a solution. So I started this little petition online. Um, it's called the Student Voice BC, and I took it to social media and did a whole branding on Student Voice BC, and did a mass marketing on that petition to get signatures. Went to the media outlets, contacted the newspapers, and even went on the radio to talk to people and get this out there and get students' voice out there because we want to go back to school. So
Yeah.
um, that initiative really, really sparked my fire essentially for marketing and what it was to come to me as I graduated uni.
Yeah, and I wanted to, transition over to talk about some of like your extracurriculars as well. And I know you touched on that, right? You were the marketing manager for leading innovative visions to execution. The live competition. You were the marketing director for International Development Conference, head of digital channels for the Women in Business Association, media director for the marketing group. Obviously, you were involved with your women's volleyball team, but also you participated in Model United Nations. That's a lot of extracurriculars, and like you said, even back in high school, you were already really involved in the student community.
Mm-hmm.
What can you say about your experiences in terms of having to exercise some of the interpersonal skills that help you excel in these positions? Because obviously, marketing and some of these like ambassador like roles really involve interacting with other people like your peers, or even like during Student Voice BC you were communicating with teachers and the government as well. You were communicating for students. Where did you pick up all these skills? Where did you get that confidence to coordinate events, have the courage to speak out on behalf of a large group of people?
So let's just say I don't have the confidence, Calvin. I'm actually very introverted in
Yeah,
nature, and I will just say that it's when I'm passionate about something, I really overlook my fears. And for me, I'm not my life motto is that I if I'm living, I better make sure I take and optimize every opportunity I get.
I love that.
Um,
I love
and
that. Yeah.
I really believe in living outside of your comfort zone because if you don't, you don't learn and get over your fears or become the better version of yourself. So for me, public speaking, even talking on this podcast, I had a lot of anxiety coming in.
Oh,
And and no, that's, and it's just how I am.
yeah.
I'm a naturally very anxious person.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, when I'm passionate about something, I just often overlook my fears, and I just take the action, just do it essentially.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I do think it's a mix of that characteristic of who I am too as a person. I am very bubbly. I love meeting new people and experiencing new things. So in that combination of wanting to step out of my comfort zone, um, that essentially leads me to all these extracurriculars. As you can tell, I've done a lot, and it's because I wanted to experience different things um, and learn different, um, experience different clubs to learn
Yeah.
different like topics essentially. For instance, each club was very unique on its own. So I chose clubs based on that, and essentially meeting new people and network around.
Yeah, and I just gotta say, like, we're so lucky to have you on the show because obviously you bring such a diverse set of experiences, and I gotta say, for like it, you've done a lot more than the average of like what the other undergraduates have done, because I feel like you take that opportunity to step out of your comfort zone, and not everyone does that. And even though I feel like you might feel anxious in different situations. I guess that's the fun of it, right? It's not,
Mm-hmm.
if you're not anxious about it, then you're not really stepping out of your comfort zone. So I
Yeah.
feel like your motto and the way that you push yourself is already so much more than what the average undergrad is doing now. So I'm really happy to see that like you have that motivation in your life. I wanted to touch on Model United Nations because you said you were also interested in politics, stepping out of your comfort zone. I know that the MUN was a really good experience for you because you got to meet other students in other regions in the Northeast, United States, and
Yeah.
eastern part of Canada as well. Obviously, new experience, new perspectives, meeting more people in your network. Can you tell us more about MUN?
Yeah, for sure. Um, Mine in high school was something that I always wanted to do, but unfortunately, I couldn't make up time for that. So
Yeah.
in university, it actually didn't even occur to me till I was in the marketing role for international development conference, where I met a lot of peers who were international development studies, and were doing political science as well. So that was where it took me. A lot of my peers in that were doing Model UN as well, and they were like, like, hey, like, come check it out. I think you might have fun. and
Mhm.
and I was like, okay, let's do it. I was interested in politics anyways. I was doing a lot of political science courses.
Yeah.
I was, already interested in law, and I was doing a couple legal courses on the business side of things. So everything came together, and I had free time to do Model UN, and I did it, and it was definitely one of the best experiences I got out of my university career. Just that I just had no idea this world existed. Model United Nations creates such an interesting environment uh, for all these students and come together and be so passionate about a particular topic. And network across universities. I was just blown away.
What were
And
some of the universities you went to?
so I went to McGill. They host McMonth, which is one of the largest Model United Nations conferences, university wise. In North America, a lot of American universities come up there, and I will say because a lot of the reason why is that they're legal in Montreal. But other than that, McGill does an awesome job hosting. I would say They are crazy good. So if anyone is listening and is interested in Model UN, I highly recommend going to McGill and attending their conference, because it's by far one of the best ones I've been to. And the other ones, I've been to smaller ones as well at Ryerson University and at York as well. But the other two that stood out to me was UPenn and, of course, Harvard.
Yeah,
Harvard was definitely a unique experience, and it was more of an international experience. So there
for
was,
sure. Yeah,
yeah, there was a lot of students from other countries.
good.
That
Yeah,
was so cool. So of course, when you learn so much and really get out the comfort zone of your political knowledge, but of course that personal development. And I feel like it was the perfect marriage of all things that I was passionate and cared about. And of course, meeting people, you just really don't know where your network might end up being. And
hmm,
I'll say one of the conferences I went to at UPenn, I was fortunate to meet a guy named Nick Jane, and um, he and one of his friends at Yale started this consulting agency in New York. It's,
interesting.
it's a Gen Z marketing consulting agency, and I got involved because of that, because of Nick, and through these connections, and did a little side gig with Jube Consulting, um, and added an experience to my marketing portfolio. So
That's
like
awesome. Yeah,
basically, I want to say, like, you never know what things, you never know where your actions might lead to. And
yeah.
I think we talked about this in our catch up. It just, yeah, be open minded, because you really don't know where you might end up if you don't try new things or meet new people.
For sure. That's really good advice. And obviously, you had to move away to Toronto. You're from Vancouver. And then from Toronto, you traveled to, many of the different cities around the region to meet
Mm-hmm.
different people. What was that experience like for you? Obviously, you had to learn to be independent. You had to get used to the subtle changes in culture from region to region. How has that experience changed you? How have you grown from it?
Yeah, that's a big question, Calvin. It's a big one.
We ask big
Um,
questions here.
yeah, and I think I talked about this earlier. So essentially, I moved to Toronto to attend University of Toronto, but also um, to live in Toronto, a big city.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's like capital of Canada. Don't tell Ottawa. But I do love Ottawa. I would highly recommend everyone to visit and take all the
For
tours
sure.
there.
For sure.
But yeah, I always heard about Toronto, never visited. I knew the career possibilities too. There's a lot of career opportunities and growth here. So everything made sense and pointed me towards this. And obviously, the program is a big one itself, being BBA and being a co-op program. So yeah, I took 2 suitcases and moved over here. And I ended up in the Scarborough region of Toronto, which is a suburb. So I
Yeah.
wasn't in the downtown campus. Um, and I actually didn't realize how far Scarborough was till I got here. So it is an adjustment, because, when I think about Toronto, before I moved to Toronto, I think about the downtown living,
Yeah.
similar to St. George. So
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that. And I will say I wasn't excited about that fact. The Scarborough campus was a more of a commuter school.
Mm.
So it was hard to really, meet like a lot of people in school. You really
Yeah.
have to go the extra miles, hence why I did a lot of extracurricular. But um, thank goodness there was a great community in Res that,
For sure.
I found myself with. But yeah, it was tough. I'm not going to lie. No matter how strong you think you are independently, or how strong intellectually you think you are, but moving across the country alone, it's a tough one. and then it's a tough adjustment. But I'm so glad I did it, and it made me become a better person, who can understand and listen to my own needs. Because, and I'll explain more about that. So in Vancouver, you grew up in an environment that I feel like,
It's an incubator. So I
yes,
think people, your parents, and then
yeah,
your teachers, and then you have really good peers that um, you're in this like housed environment where people are really nice to you. They're really supportive, and you get lots of opportunities to grow. But once you move to Toronto, it's like you're a small fish in the big pond, right? So it's like uh, you had to really look for the opportunities yourself. You had to meet everyone by yourself. You didn't have that comfortable environment anymore. Yeah.
yeah. And I think it's also another factor of that is, in though it's great to have that support and be comfortable, I feel like you could, for me, I knew I could get lost in that, in terms of finding out who I truly am. So when I moved to Toronto, like, I did lose a lot of who I was. Does
Interesting.
that make sense? Your
Yeah.
the formal identity. So when I
Get
moved
it.
to
Yeah.
Toronto, you know, and I think it goes along with everyone too. Like, even if you went to UBC, you got out of this, academic environment that was the same for 5+ years, right? And then all of a sudden you go into this new environment with different sets of expectations,
Hmm.
of and pressure. So how do you find that identity? And it's moving to another place. It's different.
Queena, we're nearing the tail end of our episode, but I wanted to ask for one last question. For someone who maybe in your position right now, a young student who is looking to get into marketing, maybe business in general, and they might have to move away from home. What's one of your biggest advice for them to do right now to prepare themselves for the experience in marketing and in a Bachelor of Business Administration?
Okay, I think there's three things in that question.
Sure. Yes.
Preparing yourself to moving away, I think, it's really hard to prepare yourself, but you could definitely try, prepare yourself mentally and physically.
Yeah.
But just expect that it will be tough. Um, Expect to work hard, and expect to be out of your comfort zone to find yourself, um, to be who you want to be, essentially, because you do get that chance to really start over and have that, a new environment, new canvas, essentially, and build, who you want to be. So I will say that, for moving away. In terms of marketing, I will say don't limit yourself,
Hmm.
whether that be academically or through other experiences. I think, um, you really should consider, branching out, in whether that be extracurricular or reaching out to, um, actual marketers in the industry and
Yeah.
network and
Mhm.
learn from them. I think that was one of the biggest things, that helped me and got to where I am, is that mentorship piece. So I
Okay.
highly recommend that.
Hmm.
And in terms of BBA, I think it's just, academically working hard, trying hard to succeed, and don't forget, about your professors and the faculty.
Yeah.
They are great, a resource to have, outside of the classroom. So
Hmm.
yes, extracurricular is one thing, but don't forget, you can network with your faculty. You can talk to them and ask them about their experiences, and they were actually a great support group. And when I actually got the job before I got my job at where I am now at Toyota Canada as the digital marketing coordinator, I had a case study that I had to do and present to my manager and the hiring manager at the time. My professor for my fourth year marketing course was a huge help. in helping me succeed in that presentation, in terms of the data models I had to execute for that. So yes, don't forget about the faculty members.
For
And
sure. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
they're willing to help their students, right? They want their students to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Your faculty and the school in general wants you to succeed. So I guess like even at school or outside in the industry, like don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help, right?
Yeah, ask for help. That's it. And don't ask questions. There is no such thing as a silly question or a
Yeah.
dumb question. Don't be afraid. Just talk to people. Yeah.
Queena, if anyone has any questions, where can they find you on social media to reach out?
You can find me on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
for sure, at Queena Zeng, or you can reach out to me via Facebook or Instagram at Queena Zeng. My Instagram handle is at Q Zeng, QZENG. You can follow me there or ask and DM me questions.
Queena, thank you so much for taking the time to come to our podcast and share your experience in Toronto, and also your business background and your really unique experience in at university. I think you really designed your degree really well, and people can use you as a role model. That's for sure.
Thank you so much, Calvin, and thank you so much for being an awesome host.
Thank you. Best of luck moving forward.
Thank you.
And thanks to you, the listeners, for joining our another episode of our podcast, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Novice Experience. Our theme song is Concrete Jungle by Audio Binger. You can find us or reach out on social media at the Novice Exp. That's the Novice EXP. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on all your podcast listening platforms. Talk to you next time.